What about some of the limitations that are discussed around gold? So moving back onto even a gold standard or just trusting gold in general. You mentioned tokenization of gold there, which is really interesting. So it involves the transfer of wealth. It's more durable, not more durable. Sorry, it's more transferable. It costs less to transfer it as well. What about some other limitations, and how would you kind of overcome them?
There really are no limitations. I mean, the gold standard works very well. I mean, the enemies of the gold standard who want to promote big government and gold stands in their way, they
Hmm.
have concocted a bunch of BS reasons to try to claim that gold doesn't work. But it does work. The reasons are BS. In fact, one of the things they say is that, yeah, well, if we're on a gold standard, it makes it harder for the central banks to stimulate the economy. Yes, exactly. We don't want central banks to stimulate the economy because they actually do damage when they stimulate. They sedate the economy. But yes, if you want the government to be able to interfere in the free market and micromanage the economy, then you don't want a gold standard. But if you believe in capitalism and free markets, then yeah, you should want a gold standard.
100%. I'd like to get your thoughts on like developing nations. So obviously a lot of these developing countries, um, like Sri Lanka, for instance, I think they had USD as their gold reserve or as their reserve currency, and if a USD is in decline and these countries hold USD, then obviously it's very net like negative. I think that's for their gross domestic gross domestic product as well as GNP as well. But how do you think about that from those countries' perspectives, especially whether they're based in Asia, Central America, South America, Africa? Like, how will they be able to survive over the longer term period?
Well, I don't think that they should be using the U.S. dollar. I mean, I think a lot of these countries should
What's the
be,
alternative?
adopting a gold standard. Yeah, well, the gold, they should use gold. And yes,
Yeah.
they could use tokenized gold. That they can have a digital currency that's backed by their gold reserves, and just move in that direction. I mean, gold is the clear alternative to the U.S. dollar, and it is superior to the dollar in every aspect. In fact, originally, the dollar was defined as a weight of gold. That's what the dollar is supposed to be. It's
Hmm.
supposed to be a specific weight of gold or silver, because we were actually on a bimetallic system where both gold and silver were legally money in the United States, and the dollar was defined by a weight of gold or a weight of silver. But now, that we've, moved away from, those constitutional requirements, the dollar is nothing. It's just defined as, whatever somebody will give you for it. I mean, there is no real definition of a dollar anymore. It's just a piece of paper, right? Government
Hmm.
creates it. It doesn't have any set value like it did in the past when it was a weight of gold or a weight of silver.
Hmm.
But gold and silver are much better money than just a fiat.
Hmm.
That's real money. Gold is real money. The Federal Reserve note is just fiat, and it's not even a note, because it doesn't pay anything.
Of course. Before we finish up, I'd like to even ask you on central bank digital currencies, because of course it's more like a trend. It's coming in. It's big in Europe. Discussed. I'm originally from Europe. It's obviously discussed a lot in the US as well. Is this just basically a disguise of what's happening in the US dollar versus looking at fixing the issue?
Now, well, look, it's another way for the government to gain more power and more control over the economy and the people. Anyone who believes in individual liberties and, should be opposed to these central bank digital currencies, because it's a slippery slope, a camel's nose under the tent. I mean, maybe initially it will be voluntary, kind of optional, like you could use paper currency or you can use the digital currency, but they may eventually phase out the paper and you have no choice but to transact in a way that the government can spy on you. And again, this is what the point that the Australian reporters were trying to make, because I was against these privacy. I believe in privacy, and I was against a lot of these laws. They're saying, well, you see, you're trying to help criminals. I'm not. I'm trying to protect law-abiding citizens from a criminal government. We don't want the government to be able to monitor every single thing we do. It's not because what we're doing is illegal. It's because what the government may do with that information is illegal. You know, you don't want the government knowing every single thing that you do,
Mm-hmm.
everything you buy, everybody you do business with. There's got to be some amount of privacy that people have from their government. You know, there's an old saying that when the government fears the people, you have freedom. When the people fear the government, you have tyranny. And, you know, the government's not going to fear us if they know everything about us. So,
And
you know,
they're also not giving back that power, right?
no, once they get power, once they usurp something, they never surrender it. So yeah, we don't want to have the government to know every single thing that you do. That's too much power to have in a government. I mean, because the government's, you know, power corrupts. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. You know, people have to be afraid of and even if today's government won't use this information for nefarious purposes, which I would doubt, because I think they already would. But you don't know how a future government is going to use this information.
Of course,
Right?
100%.
Who might, what tyrant might come to power in the future? And then let's say the public does want to resist against a tyrannical government, a government that's abusing power. How do we organize a resistance if everything we do is monitored by the government? They can send the soldiers out to arrest you immediately, right? If you try, yeah, I mean, and people think, well, the governments are always good. Well, no, they're not. There are corrupt governments, and corrupt governments don't necessarily start out corrupt. They become corrupt over time.
They also don't even realize that they're corrupt, right? That's the thing. Is that
Yes.
you know, a lot of these
Yeah,
states will
and
presume they're
you know,
doing the best for their people. That's what happens, right?
Yeah. Yeah, well, the road to hell is paved with good intentions, so.
This was a short clip from Kickoff Sessions podcast. Go check out the full episode right up here.